Starting again with trigger warning for literally anything and everything. If you have a trigger, it could be talked about in this and in part 2. Again, generalizing just for the easiness of speaking. I'm not actually generalizing and saying every single person in this group, in these different groups, apply to this. But where I left off is that straight men do have something to be afraid of. They are afraid of being held accountable, and they are afraid of specifically not winning, not afraid of just losing, but like not winning. So they're afraid of not being ahead, right? Which is why they constantly fight for us to have our rights taken away. And by us, I mean any minority. But then also, like, obviously, it's not just like straight men, right? And not even all straight men. Like I said, there are like specific groups that typically are are more Southern or more Christian. Again, not all Christian. But it makes you wonder, like, where is this bred from? And if you think about it, like, the last time that Southern Christians or people with Southern Christian values that were predominantly straight white men lost was the Civil War. And when they lost the Civil War, they literally got everything that they wanted taken away. But then they also were then allowed to basically rewrite history and teach a bunch of bullshit that didn't actually happen in Southern school. I grew up in Alabama, and I can say that all throughout junior high school, middle school, when we learned about history, and specifically Alabama history and like the US history and what happened during the Civil War, it was not what actually happened. I didn't learn about the full depths of the Civil War and how it indeed was specifically about slavery until I went to college. So if you look at it that way now, with like what's happening, where Roe v. Wade's gotten overturned, there are states literally outlawing people being able to say gay in high schools or period in high schools, talking about like a girl or like a person with a uterus starting their menstrual cycle, drag queens becoming illegal. What is all of this, right? And even like Tennessee, and during the protests that happened last week, very specifically being like blatantly racist during some of them and not caring, there not being consequences for their actions. Even back to whenever all of the big like Black Lives Matter protests were happening in 2020. Then now we basically have different members of our government just basically choosing things for the entire country and nothing being done about it. All the way from the Supreme Court to the judge in Texas that just deemed that all states should not be able to sell the specific drug that is used for abortions within the first 10 weeks of pregnancy. And the thing is, like, why all of this is happening now is they're scattering us. They're trying to pick us off one by one. They are doing things that are very specific to specific groups one at a time. And then whenever we stand up and speak, they're cutting us down. I'm so sorry, there's going to be a part 3. I did not mean for this to happen.